Hey, everybody. This morning, I'm very excited to have Ethan Lanagan with me on the call today. Ethan is based in the Nashville area, and he is a top producing agent with Compass. And he's going to introduce our Bay Area market to the greater Nashville area. So, Ethan, thank you so much for joining me on the call today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It was great to connect with you, and I think we definitely have a lot of clients moving here from all different sections of California. So happy to share. We actually moved from Southern California ourselves.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. So, you moved from Southern California when and directly to Nashville, and why?
Sure. So it's been about 6 years. So I sold real estate in Southern California. I did some international real estate sales as well. But this was not a career move for us. It was just kind of a decision as a family that we wanted to relocate. We had 3-year-olds at the time. We have twin boys. They're about 9.5 now, almost 10. So we just kind of made the decision that we wanted to raise them in a different environment, more creeks, less concrete jungle. And there was a lot of attraction to, the business growth here and less taxes and, a little less government, things like that. So we started to explore a bunch of different states and ended up looking at, a variety of different options. And Middle Tennessee just kind of really spoke to us. I think one of the things that we really enjoyed was having access to a city like Nashville without actually living in the city. So some of the other options that we considered was, like Georgia, for example, some of the suburbs that we really liked, it's, 45 minutes, plus traffic to go to, watch the Lakers beat the Atlanta Hawks, right? Whereas here I could be parked at a Titans game inside of 25 minutes. So it's a very, very accessible city with a lot of fun things to do, and a thriving and growing business climate as well.
Excellent, excellent. So I have been to Nashville one time. I went to a Floyd Wickman seminar there for a couple of
Mhm.
days downtown on Broadway. But that's really, and then I walked around Nashville while I was there in the mornings. But I don't know very much about it. So can you like maybe show us on a map like the greater like Nashville area and like the different parts of it that people from the Bay Area should know about if they're contemplating making a move out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of show a big picture and then we'll kind of narrow it down a little bit. Hopefully, we can get the technology to work for us.
Let's hope so.
All right. You should see a map on your screen. You see it on your end, Seb?
I do see a map. Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to scroll over to this, but basically, if I have the map kind of zoomed out, you'll see three different regions. So when you talk about Tennessee, people, talk about California, you'll refer to it as Northern California, Central California, Southern California. In Tennessee, it's West Tennessee, which is Memphis, which we do not have many people relocating to. And you have East Tennessee, which is Knoxville is the largest, city out there. You do have Chattanooga, which is kind of the fourth star on the map. I kind of consider that more northern Georgia, in my opinion. It's right on the border. And then Nashville is kind of the center of the universe here. So if you zoom in on the map on Nashville, you have a variety of different sections kind of in every direction. And that's one of the things that I think people are really attracted to is Nashville is a great city that there's so much to do in and there's so much activity and concerts and sports and events and things of that nature. But a lot of people that are moving here don't necessarily want to live in a city, but they like to have access to it, like I mentioned for my family. So there's suburban areas in a variety of different directions that people are really relocating to. I would say kind of the top three hubs are to the north side. You have Hendersonville is a big hub that's in Sumner County. And then you have different sections outside of that, like Gallatin, which is growing in popularity, White House, which is growing in popularity, that are a little less known. And then to the east, you have Mount Juliet, which is a very popular suburban area with, decent quality family homes and some higher end homes as well. And then you have Lebanon a little bit further out. And it's almost like the further out you go, you're going to get a little bit more house for your money. Kind of southeast, you have Murfreesboro. That's been the fastest growing city in Tennessee for many years. It's actually transitioning to be Lebanon right now, in my opinion. And there's some nice areas outside of that, and there's a college there. Good bang for your buck area. I would say the big knock to this area is the traffic on 24 is probably the worst in Nashville. Certainly does not compare to California traffic, but it is a factor. And then the south section is where I live. This is what's known as Williamson County, which is a big hotspot for a lot of people relocating that are coming from states with higher cost of living because it is a higher end area of Middle Tennessee. but that's Franklin, the majority of Brentwood, Nolensville, Arrington, College Grove, Thompson Station, and about half of Spring Hill, and the majority of Fairview, which is more of a rural section out here on the other side. So those are kind of the three quadrants or sections, I guess I'll say, of greater Nashville where the majority of people are relocating to. We're probably seeing the biggest influx coming into the South, from areas like the Bay Area, because it is a higher priced market where your money goes a lot further when you move out to Tennessee, in the southern section, which is kind of Franklin, Brentwood, and Williamson County. And there's a lot of, great neighborhoods within Nashville as well that are very popular if you do want more urban living. These are all kind of Nashville addresses, but they're little like niche sections, within the city of Nashville that, may speak to you. So for example, I just sold a house kind of over in this area to a family that moved in. They're originally from California. They came by way of Maryland, but they wanted kind of urban living close to the city, a fun place to live, but still, a good quality house. And then, you're, I don't know, 7-8 minutes to get downtown and get to Broadway and go out and have some fun. But there's a lot of different sections, kind of niche neighborhoods within Nashville as well.
So how big is Nashville exactly?
So I guess the way that I would explain it is I can drive from the Kentucky border up here to my house in Franklin, which is about 25 minutes south of Nashville, in about an hour, right? And I could also drive from my house in Franklin to the Alabama border in about an hour. So that's middle Tennessee, top to bottom is less than 2 hours, right? So it's a much smaller geographic area than driving, north to south of California, being, a lengthier state. But one of the things that is unique here, in my opinion, is when you look at an area like California, so when you're comparing it to, Orange County, where we moved from originally, or Los Angeles County, or Ventura County, where I was actually born, you have these big counties, right? Whereas in Middle Tennessee, this area, which we refer to as Greater Nashville, is actually like 14 or 16 counties. So the counties are actually relatively small outside of Greater Nashville. So this is Williamson County, which is where I happen to live. I could drive across this in about 15-20 minutes, right?
Wow.
Assuming there's no traffic. So you can go, you're just taking the interstate and you're hopping on in Brentwood, and you're ending at about Spring Hill. And it's about, 15-20 minute drive, depending on the traffic flow. And then this is Davidson County, and then you have Sumner County and Wilson County. So you have all these counties that are not that big, but are a little bit separate, and they kind of have defining cities, within the county that people know by name.
So each one of these counties has like a board of supervisors, and they all have their own little rules and regulations, or is it like a metro area that oversees everything, or?
Yeah, so Nashville is a metro area that oversees everything, and then outside of that, there's, so Franklin, for example, you have City of Franklin, which will have a local government, but you also have a county mayor for Williamson County, which kind of oversees all of that. And a lot of the land here is a little bit unique. So if I zoom in here, this is all City of Franklin, for example. But if I sell a house out here, it's still a Franklin address, but it's outside of the city limits. So you're actually regulated by the county. So if you're talking about, building permits and things of that nature, you're going to Williamson County out here, not the City of Franklin. And the county lines are, a little bit different. I think it'll actually show up on the map here. So if I do Franklin, Tennessee, it's a wild shape, right? It's not a grid by any means. So there's sections here. Like I have a house that's under contract right here, which is very close to, urban areas, but it's actually on county land. Versus, out here, which is even probably a little bit more rural, but it's within the city limits. So you always want to check that when you're looking at a property, if you're in the city limits or not. And it also affects your tax base a little bit, because you have no city taxes if you're on county land. But our property taxes are very low here in general.
Is it easier to build in the city or out of the city?
I would say it depends on the county. So Williamson County has the strictest codes department in the state. It's also the highest end, bills that are going in that area. It's the highest average income in the state of Tennessee. So they are a little bit stricter as a county. But when you go to other counties, like if I drop south into Murray County in this area, the codes departments are a lot less strict than what you're experiencing in Williamson County, for example. So it'll vary county to county, I guess is the answer.
Okay. All right. Well, I would love to see some houses that maybe you've sold or represented buyers on either way. Can you
Sure.
show us like what the houses look like in Nashville and Franklin and all these places?
You got it. Yeah. So we sold, I always say like most of my business comes off referral. So I sell all different kinds of price points. I think since moving here, I've sold as low as $200,000. Then we've sold, houses that are, $4 or $5 million. So there's a broad range of price points. And that'll be, obviously very location driven, but also specific, to the house and the, type of property. So I guess if I go down to kind of the entry point of what we sold this year, let's go to like, here's a very good example of kind of a, entry point home in a subdivision that's, fairly simple, but nice and relatively new, or you can go get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and for, $350,000, and you can move right in. And these are, obviously not, luxury finishes or anything like that, but they're simple, they're affordable, and there's a lot of these being built. This one happened to be a resale, although it was only a year or two old. But you can get brand new construction houses in, a lot of sections of, greater Nashville. So within about, 40 minutes of the city, where you're getting, affordably built properties that are coming out in that $300,000 to $400,000 range, for example. So here's one that I have under contract right now. It's, $375,000. It's almost 2,000 square foot. It's a 4-bedroom townhome. It's in a neighborhood that has, amenities and, community pool and, things like that. And this is brand new construction. And these are some of the photos just kind of the city of Lebanon, their little downtown area, and just kind of some of the community amenities outside of the actual city.
Oh, downtown looks nice. How far from downtown is that townhouse right there?
From downtown Nashville.
No, from downtown. You said Lebanon?
Yeah, I would say 10, 12 minutes. Yeah,
10,
so
12 minutes.
it's not far at all. And when I say that, things tend to be a little bit more spread out here than people might be used to in California. So a lot of times, being within 10 minutes of a city center is considered relatively close, whereas in California, you might walk to the city center. That is a little less common here, but it all depends on kind of where you're looking.
So a lot of people who are buying, say, in Lebanon, they would be buying direct from the builder, new construction. Is that a big chunk of the market?
Yeah, I do a lot of new construction business, and the the new construction environment here is, very buyer friendly, and they actually highly encourage you to work with a realtor on those as well, which I experienced a little less, selling in California, because there's a lot of different steps throughout the process, especially with people that are buying remotely. But a lot of these on this list are new builds and new construction, and they vary a lot in price point as well. Ranging from the 300s up to, multi-million dollar custom homes. So when I say new construction, I mean, there could be homes that we're buying a piece of property and I'm helping a client design and build a custom home on their own land. There's a lot of steps to that, and a lot of people enjoy that. And a lot of people, get intimidated by that and then end up buying a resale like this that is a couple of years old. So this client was debating on doing a custom or doing a, completed property, and they ended up leaning towards completed property just because it was kind of less work and less stress on the family.
Okay, so these newer construction ones that you just showed us, the standalone and then the townhouse, what kind of like lot size do they have? Like the townhouse probably doesn't really have a big lot, or what does that look like? The backyard, or
Yeah, so townhouses are going to have really no lot to speak of, but they will have kind of a common area typically behind it. So this one, for example, is in a higher end community, which does have kind of green space out front, but this is all common area. So you only own the structure of the townhome. There's not a fenced house or fenced lot, behind the property. But there is, loads of common areas and, amenities, within the community. So that's what you're buying there. And if you're talking about a house, it really just depends. So like the affordably built, 350 to 450 kind of new construction are typically going to be in pretty modest sized lots. So we're talking, maybe a 7,000, 8,000 square foot lot where you're still getting a backyard, but it's not a huge, acreage type property. And then, this is a little bit of a, mid-range entry level kind of a luxury property. This is more like a third acre, for what you're building. and you're getting, I think this house finished around 4,300 square feet, and kind of higher end finishes, more of a semi-custom home for what you're getting for your money out here, and you're getting more of a true backyard. It has a 4-car garage, so you're getting kind of a lot more space, but obviously a different price point than the entry level price point. And then we also have, like, here's one that I just sold. It might not even be on this list as of yet, but I just sold one this week that was a acreage property, where it was 16 acres, and the client is actually bringing out horses from California. They live in kind of a ranch area of San Diego, and we do a lot of acreage properties here, but obviously those are less, within kind of city limits, and close to a downtown area of some sort of city.
Well, even a 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lot is actually a pretty good size for most parts of the Bay Area, certainly.
That's true.
So that's actually good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about Franklin? So we have what are the houses like in Franklin? There is like a downtown in Franklin, is that right?
There is, and I think that's a big draw to Franklin. So like this house that I just showed you, for example, is within Franklin, but it's 15. I think I clocked it as it was slightly under 20. To get to the actual downtown Franklin. But if I come over to the map here, it's like that house is kind of over here, but to get downtown Franklin, it's a bit of a drive to get in there. And then if you zoom in on the map here, this section of off 65, where you'll see a little bit more gray areas, this is what's known as Cool Springs. And this is one of the reasons why Franklin, Brentwood, and these areas are so popular, is inside of this general area, you have kind of everything you could ever ask, right? So I just took my kids to the movies, and we have a movie theater with lounge chairs, and they bring your food to your seats. And, we have Whole Foods, we have Costco, we have, higher end grocery stores, we have a Trader Joe's. So this area of Tennessee has everything that you're used to within California, with the exception of the beach, right?
Or an Apple store.
There is an Apple store. Yeah, there's multiple.
Well, that's very important.
There's one here, and there's one in Green Hills, which is Nashville as well. And then
Okay.
downtown Franklin, which is really just amazingly popular and charming. It's kind of out of a Hallmark movie, is over here, and this has just kind of a really kind of charming downtown view. So if I go to historic downtown Franklin, Tennessee, you'll see all these different visuals, but it's just like a Hallmark movie downtown. So there's a lot of festivals here. There's very, very walkable area. But you may not live in downtown Franklin if you're moving out here. So like I live probably, I don't know, 8 minutes from there. But we drive and we park, and then we go walk around, and that kind of thing. But it's a very, very charming historic downtown. We refer to it as America's favorite Main Street, but obviously we're biased.
Right. Okay. Really cool. Really cool. So, now how about like Nashville itself? Can you take us like a spin through like Nashville? Like all I know is Broadway, but like
Yeah.
are there parts of Nashville where people from the Bay Area would be focusing on?
Yeah, so it really depends on what you want. So if you're talking about moving out to Nashville here, and I take, Franklin off the map here, there's all these different niche areas. So it kind of just depends on how urban you want to go, right? So Broadway is right downtown, and it's right on the Cumberland River. So you have this area right here, which is downtown in the Gulch, and then Broadway's over here. So this is kind of the most urban core section of Nashville. And then outside of it, you have all these kind of niche areas, right? So Germantown, for example, is really popular. That's kind of has like a very foodie area where there's been just tons of new development and higher end restaurants and things like that have gone into play here. East Nashville is extremely popular with, people that are a little younger and cooler than me, but there's a big foodie scene out here, big music scene, things like that in this area. And then you have higher end areas like Green Hills, kind of to the southwest area. You have Belmont, Vanderbilt, which are, very nice, high-end universities out here. And then a lot of just niche neighborhoods that are popular, like a Sylvan Park, or more luxury areas like a Westmead or a Belmead, where you're, very high-end multi-million-dollar homes out here as well.
All right. Well,
So
we
yeah,
should say that.
there's kind of something for everybody. And the biggest thing I encourage people that are to do when they're moving out here, if they're considering actually living within the city of Nashville, is go drive all these little unique areas and just see kind of if one's going to speak to you. Or I like to spend a lot of time really kind of getting to know our clients and doing Zoom meetings and talking about what's important to them, so I can kind of steer them in the right direction of what areas they should spend some time in. But I do not think people should move out here and like buy a house on day one. They should go and explore these areas and walk the neighborhoods and go to the local coffee shop and people watch. And one of the areas will end up kind of speaking to you.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious though. Like, let's just say that I'm moving to Nashville and I have $1 million to spend on a house. I'm a family, we're a nuclear family of five. Like, what would a like? What would you recommend in Nashville? Like, what kind of?
So most of my clients that are having that family life and they're looking to raise children and their budget's $1 million, they're shifting south. So they're going to Williamson County because they have the highest rated schools in the state, and great suburban lifestyle and great parks and things like that. And you'll get some of that in different sections of Nashville, but you'll get less of it in abundance within kind of the city limits. So if you shift to some of these outside suburban areas, you're getting more of that, true family lifestyle that most people are looking for, and school ratings and things of that nature that you're not getting if you're living within the city limits of Nashville.
So people from the Bay Area who move to Nashville, do they actually move to Nashville, or do they really not move to actual Nashville proper so much?
I would say, so I'm trying to think of my last couple of Bay Area clients. Um, Franklin, Brentwood, um, and then one of them went and bought acreage way outside of the city, where they bought a lot of land and they're having animals and things like that, which is not as common, but does happen when you're transitioning from there. But I would say the bulk of people that are moving out, from that area, especially because it is, a higher priced area, they're shifting into Franklin and Brentwood and some of the surrounding cities out there.
Huh, okay, well, that is very good to know. So,
Yeah.
what's the overall state of the real estate market? Like right now in Silicon Valley, I think it's fair to say the market is kind of slowing down. Is that true out where you are, or
It is. I mean, so we've experienced the slowdowns. Like this is a house I just sold. It's closing next week, and this was, I think we had
million
about
dollars?
10 days on market before it sold. This is very close to downtown Franklin. It's about 4,000 square foot, including basement square footage, and we had 12 days on market, which is relatively low, for days on market, but it was a phenomenal location. However, it did need to be completely renovated. So when people are looking at this, it is a home that is very original. So you would think that this would take longer to sell, but it's all in the pricing. If you're pricing it appropriately, things are still moving relatively quickly. But for sellers that are kind of hanging on to pricing of 2022, 2023, those are taking much longer to sell, and we're seeing more reductions and uh, incentives being thrown in as well. But a big portion of our market is new construction, which a lot of times your timing, and the builders typically do not negotiate on price. But what I can often get is incentive money and rate buy down money and upgrades thrown in and things like that. But the
So,
general market dynamics are, I would say, more balanced here versus in California, where a lot of sections have shifted to a complete buyer's market, or like in Austin, Texas, which is an extreme buyer's market right now. I think we've shifted to being more of a balanced market.
so do most people coming from the Bay Area, do they actually build? I mean, what's the percentage where they're building or buying something already like ready to go from the developer versus buying resale? How does that break down?
I would say it's probably, um, I would say probably 40% of the business for people moving in from that area is going to be new construction. Um, so we're seeing a significant amount of that, but there's also houses that are very new that have only been lived in for a couple of years that are still very appealing. But I think a lot of people that are moving in from these areas find it appealing to move into a house and not have to do anything because they're moving in from another state and they're restarting aspects of their life. So they don't want to go in and update and remodel a property. So new is very appealing, but it's still a spread.
Well, everybody loves new construction. In the Bay Area, we hardly have any new construction to speak of. And when we do, it's starter homes, generally speaking, or a tear down of a, nicer property and a rebuild of that. But going back to
Yep.
this $1 million house in downtown that was 4,000 square feet for $1 million, sold in 12 days. Did that have
Sure.
like overbids, or was there just one buyer came in and they took it, or what was that like in today's market buying that house?
We ended up having one buyer, so we had a significant amount of traffic on it. But I think because it needed quite a bit of updating, there was a thinking process that needed to go with somebody that was buying the property. So I think it took a little bit longer. So the person that ended up buying it, they went back and looked at it, I think 3 times before they actually wrote the offer. And I think that's common. Is we're seeing just in general in the market, people are taking a little bit longer to make a decision, but it still went very close to asking price. So there was not, multiple offers, but it didn't get bid up, 100 grand over asking like we were seeing at the peak of the market.
So, like here in the Bay Area, a lot of people are, thinking that they will have to like upgrade whatever house they buy, right? Because the stock here is pretty old, right? So I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who are open to that. But they look at a house like that, it's 4,000 square feet. Like in the Bay Area, to remodel that house, it would be $1 million, kind
Yeah.
of at least, right? So what would that cost to remodel that house in Nashville?
So we had a designer in to take a look at that, and I think when we're talking about kitchens and the primary bath and then some cosmetic stuff, I think the guess was around $150,000 as an entry point. Now you could certainly spend much more than that, but if I were to buy this, I think you'd spend $1 million on this. You'd probably put 250 into it, and it'd probably be worth 1.4, after doing some of the updating that the property needs.
Right on. Okay, so that's pretty enticing, I think. And just curious, how big is the lot size on that property there?
I think this one was about a third acre, if I recall
Oh,
correctly.
okay. Well, that's right, and that's right downtown Nashville. That's pretty
Quarter,
great.
excuse me. Yeah.
And would you say that's walking distance to like a coffee shop and
Yeah. I mean, you could walk. You're probably talking. I think it was just about a mile to like the city center of downtown Franklin, but
like
you could
20
be at a
minutes?
coffee shop or a breakfast spot in 3/4 of a mile. So definitely walking distance.
Right. Okay. And so, big house like that, what's the property tax like on that?
So average property taxes in Middle Tennessee are about 0.65% of assessed value. And that's within the city limits. If you go outside of the city limits, it's a little bit less than that because you do not have city taxes. So for $1 million, your property taxes are probably around $6,000, maybe 6,500, for where you're at in price point. And if you're outside of the city limits, you're probably more like 5,000.
So, are they reassessed every year? So every year your property tax could go up if it gets reassessed higher?
So we do not have Prop 13 here, which I always jokingly say is the one good tax law in California. But we do have reassessments that come in, but it is not every year. So each county will vary, but it's typically every 4 years, sometimes 5 years, depending on the county.
Okay, and is there a cap how much can jump up, or no, it just jumps up to whatever it is at the time?
No, they just reassessed them. So I mean, a lot of people were reassessed this year, and they had a decent property tax hike. But on the same token, the house that you bought for 7 is now worth 1.1, so they're not too mad about it.
Okay, so out in California, we have like this insurance crisis, and insuring a house like that, 4,000 square feet in many parts of California would be very expensive, like 10 grand plus a year. What's insurance like in Franklin?
So insurance is significantly less. Trying to think how to gauge it, but I mean, my house is, right around that size, and my insurance cost for, I think, homeowners and auto is like $3,300, and that's 2 cars, and full coverage insurance, and my house is probably worth a little bit more than that, but in that price range. So insurance cost is significantly less here than most sections of California, as well as comparing to states like Florida. It's I mean, it's way less. Like I have a second home in the Florida Panhandle, which we have it as an Airbnb property. It's a third the size of my house in Franklin, and my insurance is over double.
Right, right. And so, what's the weather like? I mean, like, I mean, I was there in December. It seemed cold, but not freezing. I mean, what's the variation like?
So we have spring and fall, which everybody loves, right? It's magical, changing of colors, great weather, not too hot, not too cold, not too humid. You have the winter, which I was very intimidated by, worried I'm going to be cold constantly. It doesn't bother me at all. We'll have 1 or 2 snow dumps a year where it dumps down snow. Everybody takes a couple days off of work or works from home. The kids go sledding in the neighborhood, and then it's gone in a week. I think we had a really big one about not this winter, but the previous winter. It lasted like 10 days. And we're not talking, it was dumping for 10 days. It was that long till it was melted away and removed. So the winters are extremely mild, but you still get kind of that magical snow that dumps that people love and enjoy. But the average winter day might be 35 degrees, dipping down in the night, and then 2 days later, you might be at 60 degrees. So there's a lot of variance in the weather. And then summer will be more hot and more humid, but we don't get extreme temperatures. So my dad lives in California, he lives in the desert, and he was out here going, well, yeah, I'm not outside in the desert, jogging anyway when it's 115 degrees. We never hit those kind of temperatures, but we do have some humidity, which is a factor. But the humidity is not nearly as bad as I had it built up to be in my head. Although, of course, that's going to be subjective. We'll have days where it's 90 degrees and 93% humidity, and you're sticky outside. But then we'll have a summer storm and it'll rain, and then the humidity's gone for 4 or 5 days. So comparing it once again to Florida, when everybody talks about humidity, I refuse to go to Florida in July or August. Like, it's just horrible. Whereas it's not nearly as bad here. But coming in from a more desert state like California, you're certainly going to feel that a little bit. But I would say great fall, great spring, excuse me. Winter is milder than you might think, but you still do get a true winter. And then summer does have some heat and humidity, but not nearly as bad as like the more southern coastal states.
All right. So also in the Bay Area, if you were to be buying a 4,000 square foot house, you'd be paying a lot to cool and heat that. So
Mhm.
what are utility bills like for a house like that in Franklin?
So my utility bill for my electric is the biggest one that is always shocking to me. I think my highest month that I had last year was $319, and that's August. And we like a cold house, so we keep it currently. I'm at 68 degrees in my house, and at night we turned it down to 66, and we have no solar or anything like that. So electric is pennies on the dollar compared to California. Gas is going to be a little bit cheaper, but kind of not an overly expensive utility in general. Water is kind of a wash; it's usually about the same, but electric is a huge savings compared to the rates that you're getting in California.
All right. Well, that sounds great. I can see why so many people are interested in moving to the greater Nashville area. So, Ethan, I want to thank you for your time. But before I wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you about moving to Nashville?
I mean, I think some of the things we spoke about previously was some neighborhoods that are very attractive. There's a variety of them. This is a neighborhood that has kind of that village life feel, where there are neighborhoods in particular that have a walkability to them, where you have, golf and amenities and restaurants and things like that within the neighborhood that is very appealing to people. So we'll see that'll pop up, within these areas. Gas prices we spoke about a little bit. This is Franklin, which is the most expensive gas in Tennessee. If you move it out to, Nashville, Tennessee, for example, uh, you're in the 250 to $3 range in most areas, for regular gas. So that's significantly more affordable. I think one of the big draws here is all the happenings, right? So there's so many local events and festivals and, Music City, concerts, things like that are constantly happening. It is a destination city for travel. And then what else? We talked a little bit about business climate. So I think you previously had some questions about some of the business climate that's happening. There is a significant growth in business in Tennessee in general, but in particular in Middle Tennessee, we're having a huge wave of growth happening here. In-N-Out Burger headquarters is about a mile from my house, which is currently being built. That's a $126 million investment, probably, and rising. Oracle is doing a new campus on the river in Nashville. You have Facebook offices, Amazon offices, automotive, healthcare is a big industry here. So there's a significant amount of business growth that's happening, in Middle Tennessee as well, that we're seeing, an actual thriving economy. So there are actual jobs here, not just work remote. But we have a lot of clients that are moving here and working remote as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right. So if people wanted to get a hold of you and to speak more about maybe moving to Nashville or Franklin or wherever, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just give me a call. You can check out my website, it's thelanagangroup.com. That's and then Lanagan is Lanagan, and then group.com. But if you Google me and you just put in Ethan Lanagan Realtor, I would say look at my reviews to make sure that that's something you're going to feel confident in. And then just give me a call. But it's 615-707-0321. And yeah, I mean, I'd love for you to share your content information as well. I would hopefully be able to post this on my YouTube channel, and I would imagine some of my clients might be moving here from the Bay Area. Sometimes they look first and then find their listing agent once they've decided where they're going to go.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, Ethan, thank you so much. I really learned a ton, and I can't wait to come back out to Nashville again one of these days. It's a beautiful place, I know, and I'm hearing more and more about people from the Bay Area moving out there. So I need to go and spend some more time there myself.
Sounds good. Let me know when you come in. We'll go catch some live music and have some fun.
Oh, I'd love to. All right. Thanks, Ethan.
Thanks. Take care.
All right.